Hey everyone, today we're going to be tying a variation of the red tag. Alright, welcome everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Matt. I'm the manager of the Northern Angler here in Traverse City, Michigan. We're a small, independent shop focused on getting you comfortable and confident at the vise and on the water. If you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button. That lets you know whenever we have a new tying video, tips, tricks, all the fun stuff. And if any of this is helpful, hit that thumbs up. That helps us a lot and helps other people find this information. This is one of my personal favorite flies. You'll find my box full of these. We have a local river here that's full of rocks and full of caddis, and this is one of my favorite caddis imitations to use. Let's take a look at the materials we'll be using today. The hook is a Daiichi 1150, which features a continuous bend, a slight up eye, and 1X heavy wire. It's a great hook for pupa and emergers, but feel free to substitute a scud hook such as the 2457 from TMC or Hanak H300 BL. To get this fly down, we'll be placing a 3.5mm tungsten bead to match the size 12 hook. We'll also place some lead wraps behind the bead to keep it in place. For thread, Uni 6/0 will work great and give us a nice hot spot when we tie everything off. There are tons of things you can use to make the red tag for the tail of this fly, but we'll be using some egg yarn today. It's easy to use and most of you have some laying around. We'll use 3 to 4 strands of peacock herl for the body and counter wrap it with some ultra wire. If you like a little bit more flash, you can substitute some flashabou or tinsel for the ribbing material. Our collar will be 2 wraps of CDC, which will really help this fly come alive underneath the surface. You'll definitely want CDC feathers and not puffs for this collar. As always, there's a link in the description for the full material list and all the tools used in today's video. Let's start by putting your hook securely in the vise here. It's always really important to have safe tying practice. Make sure that's nice and safe in the vise. Having a good vise goes a long way. We're going to add a little bit of lead-free wire here. I really load this one up. This is probably about 12 wraps of 0.015. I'm going to seat that up into the bead. Looks good. I'm actually going to utilize, you'll see here in a minute, this step. I'm going to fill that specifically. So I'm going to start my thread right behind the wire. Wrap down into the bend a little bit. This is kind of a scud style hook. You can use a scud hook, works great. 2457 style, U202, just to name a few. There's a lot of them out there. This one's just a nice light wire. I'm going to grab our egg yarn here. This is flame again. It is bright and one of my favorite parts, UV reactive, so it's fluorescent. Grab less than you think. See, that's just a little tuft, man, but it still might be too much because we're going to do the same thing I like to do with rubber legs and actually fold this around the back end side. Bring it up right to where that wire is. And we're going to wrap down where we stopped our thread right there. That's great. And that's going to help us fill that gap so there's not such a big step between the shank and the wire, because that never goes real well. Bring it up to the wire. Here I'm going to spin my bobbin counterclockwise. That's going to flatten the thread out a little bit. I'm going to wrap over top of this wire and bring it right up to the bead. Here I'm going to place my wire, just insert that into the bead on the near side. I'm going to wrap all the way down. To where that tail is. Another material you can use that works really well is some flash glue. It will add some shine in there, a little bit of sparkle underneath that CDC collar. Looks really nice. Next, we're going to pick out 3 or 4 strands of peacock herl here. Try and make sure the tips are lined up a little bit. If you got to trim a little bit to get all 3, 4 in there. Never want to tie right at the tips. That's one of the weakest parts of this fiber. So I always like to give myself a little bit of room to lash these down with. Flatten my thread out again just a little bit. Cover those up. Work up to where the wire is. Make sure there's a nice, just ever so slight taper to this. You can probably see that. I'm going to bring this right to the bead. Do a half hitch or 2. Bring your cradle into play here. If you can, stick that wire over in your material clip. And I'm going to give this a little teeny bit of a twist. Okay. Just helps things stay together. I'm sure you've had peacock herl come apart on you, you know, where all the strands like to spread out. It's kind of maddening, so this is one little trick that can help that. I'm gonna wrap all the way, pretty much all the way up to the bead, but I'm not gonna cram it in there. You know, I could fit a whole nother wrap there. I'm gonna stop now because I want to save myself some space to tie off my wire and to tie in that CDC collar. Tie that off with some wraps on top and in front of it. Now we need to go the opposite direction with your wire. This is what's going to help make for a really nice durable fly. Give it some segmentation. Capture that. I usually do 3 wraps on top, 3 in front, interchangeable there. Bring the nozzle of your bobbin right up to the bead. We do a little helicopter motion. That breaks the wire right off. This is the point where I usually trim the tail. Once you tie that CDC collar in there, there's going to be errant fibers all over the place. So the goal here is I'm trying to do no longer than the gap of the hook. So that's between the point and the shank. Usually I'll even do maybe half of that, because I just want this little hit of red in there. Great. Next, we just need to grab some CDC. I like to use brown for this pattern. Natural is another great one. Good CDC is hard to find. You should hoard it if you can. Or if you have a source, let me know. All right, I'm going to tie this in by the tip. You can tie this in by, by the bottom piece there if you want, but it's such a thick piece of fiber in comparison. Okay. Trim that off. Really make sure you capture that because it does become slick up there. All right, I'm going to use a hackle plier here. And this is going to do 2 things for us. Number one, it's going to give me a little bit of control. Try and not add too much tension to this because it will seriously ruin your day when this breaks. So I'm going to wet my fingers here a little bit and preen these fibers back. One wrap, pretty good. I'm going to go for a second. And that's all I want right there. This is why I really like having a hackle plier, is I can now use 2 hands tying this thing off. Reach in there. There we go. You don't want to pack this too tight with CDC fibers. It will just overwhelm the fly, and really want to be able to see the peacock herl underbody. I want to be able to see that red tag. I want to see my ribbing when this gets wet, and it looks wonderful when it gets wet. So we're going to use our whip finish tool here. I'm not in a hurry here because I'm actually trying to spread these wraps out. I'm going to end up with a 4 or 5 or 6 turn whip finish, somewhere in there, whatever your lucky number is. Rotate this. It looks like we got pretty good coverage with that CDC. There's one fiber here I'm going to trim because I'm going to come in and very, very delicately apply a little bit of UV resin. And to do this, one tip, actually start with this brush on the bead. And I slide it down to kind of that little area where the thread is. And that way you're not clumping up into your CDC too much. I don't care if a little bit of epoxy gets on the bead, so what, right? All right, hit that. See that tail glow in there? That's awesome. Give it some rotations. There we go. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you get a chance to tie this and fish it. Like I mentioned before, this is one of my favorites. So if you see me out there on the water, there's a good chance this is on my line too. Leave us some comments down below. We love to hear from you. Again, if you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button, notification bell, and maybe even the thumbs up button. That helps us out a ton. As always, thanks everyone. Hope to see you soon on the water or in the shop.